Hey, what's up guys? It's Tip, and I want to start this video off by asking you a little question. Do you like toys? Of course you like toys. I like toys. Everybody likes toys. The kids like toys. Who doesn't like toys? Well, in this episode of Classic WoW Guides, we're going to be going on one of the coolest quests in World of Warcraft history, and more importantly, the first quest that awards you with the first version of a toy in World of Warcraft. I'm of course talking about the Raene's cleansing quest in Ashenvale that takes you all over the zone trying to discover and assemble Dartol's Rod of Transformation, a strange device that has the potential to transform you into a Furbolg so long as you're not in combat. But because this is classic, these unique and creative items in World of Warcraft are not yet called toys. There's no special interface for them. You can't summon them. They're not account wide. You actually have to use them as an item in your inventory. I want to say it was Warlords of Draenor, possibly, where the toy inventory tab was actually created. So it's just one thing to keep in mind. You are going to have to keep the item in your bag, so make sure you don't delete it because it's a really cool item. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So here we are at Raene's in Astronar, and we're picking up the first part of the quest, which tells us to find a long-lost sentinel by the name of Tyronis. Now, Tyronis was on a mission to solve the Furbolg invasion problem in Astronar, and supposedly he had a really good lead on a specific item that would magically solve all of their problems. So by finding Tyronis, dead or alive, hopefully we can at least get some kind of clue as to what that artifact is, and maybe, just maybe, we can put it together ourselves. Ashenvale is without a doubt one of the coolest zones in the game. I mean, just look at the aesthetics in this place. It is the perfect encapsulation of an enchanted forest, and it actually reminds me a lot of the Lothlorien Wood in Lord of the Rings 1. That's the forest where they meet that crazy witch, Galadriel. I think it's super cool, and it really reminds me of a place that's enchanted because of its aura, because of this gloomy tint that makes it feel like the air is thicker than it actually is. I think that's a really, really nice touch. It separates it from some place like Elwyn Forest, and at the same time, it makes it feel like you are in a very elfy zone. And honestly, one of my favorite parts about Ashenvale are these random bodies of water scattered across the map. And at this first one, Lake Philathrim, we find the corpse of our dear friend Tyronis. Now, unfortunately, Tyronis is dead, unfortunately, but we did pick up his journal as well as the first clue to assemble this magic rod, and that is that Tyronis was seeking out a gem that could hopefully be used as a component to assemble the rod. Now, surrounding Tyronis' dead body are a bunch of murlocs who, of course, have stolen that gem, so make sure you kill these murlocs and eventually the gem will drop. I think it took me about 7 or 8 kills. It's a completely random drop, but they do have the gem. Take them out as quickly as possible. Nobody likes murlocs. And of course, be careful because murlocs are most famous for ganging up in groups. So make sure to tackle them one at a time. It's not too difficult. So we got the gem, and now we're returning to Raene's, who's going to give us the next portion of the quest. But I want to turn your guys' attention to something real quick. This is a level 18 quest that already has required us to take out level 20 to 21 murlocs. Now, if you haven't played vanilla back in the day, you might not know that level discrepancies are actually a huge deal. If a mob is just 2 levels higher than you, they actually pose a significant threat more than a mob that's at your level. 3 levels higher than you, and things actually start to get pretty hard. Raene's Cleansing's final quest requires you to take out a level 30 mob. Now, if you saw my vanilla questing video, you probably know what I'm going to say, and that is the fact that having higher level quests in your quest log is actually incredibly immersive, and it makes you feel like an adventurer inside a living, breathing world. I have this quest right now, and in a couple parts of the quest chain, I'm not going to be able to complete it by myself unless I am over-leveled, which I am in this case, or if I group up with somebody, which is also another viable option. Having that choice to tackle harder level content at earlier levels is something we haven't seen since vanilla, and I think it's a great part of the original quest design, and I just thought I'd give it a shout out here real quick because it is part of this quest. So now Raene's is telling us that there's actually a druid in Ashenvale that might be able to help us complete the assembly of this rod. So we're going to go ahead to that druid, and hopefully she can give us more information as to how we can complete this thing. This was always a big moment for me back in the day. It's the first time, I believe, you come across a moonwell in World of Warcraft. Now, if you played Warcraft 3, you'll know what the significance of the moonwells actually were. They were one of the buildings you could build as the Night Elves, and they allowed you to restore health and damage, as well as increase the volume of units you could build in your army. I think it's a really nice touch to actually see one of these things come to life. So it looks like the druid Shaldrin does know about the rod, and she's going to help us recover its next piece. Now, what she tells us is that there's an area in Ashenvale where you can actually find these corrupted tree ends, and in that area, there's a wooden box that contains the next portion of the rod, which is called the Iron Shaft. I'm not making this up. Look, I didn't write this quest, okay? And whoever did, shame on you for all of these phallic puns. There's a ton of them in this quest, but I guess you just have to ignore it and keep on going. Now, these tree ants are actually the first big step up in difficulty of this quest chain, as they're between level 25 and 27, and they actually have their own abilities. And on top of that, there's only a few of them that spawn in the actual area surrounding the lockbox. You have to kill the tree ants in order to uncover the key that opens up the box, but you might run into a scenario where you run out of tree ants and you have not yet recovered the key. It's like a 13% drop or something like that. So in case you do run out of tree ants, there's actually another spot that's just a little bit before this area. There are a couple more over there, I think like 3 or 4. Hopefully you won't have to wait for another wave to respawn. You can just take out those 3 or 4 and one of them will drop the key. I only know 2 different types of withered in World of Warcraft. One of them wasn't introduced till Legion, and the other one, just playing, Zach, and hopefully everything's okay with Mom. Our thoughts and prayers are with you guys. So after killing about 10 of these withered ancients, I do finally recover the wooden key and I open up the box to retrieve the iron shaft. Now this final component, the iron pommel, is actually set in a very interesting area. At the very starting point of Ashenvale is an intersection with the Barrens, and of course, there's also the Horde base camp for Ashenvale, along with their primary quest hub. The iron pommel is recovered in that location. So you can bet your bottom there is a lot of PvP going on in that area, especially if you're level appropriate. People are probably going to challenge you and kill you if you're on your own. After thinking about this for a while this morning, I actually think that was intentional. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You couldn't miss it. It's right next to the Horde base camp. And I think this might be Blizzard's first real attempt at a PvP quest. I'm not entirely sure, but they definitely knew that you were going to experience PvP in this area. It's just so close to the Horde base camp. I think it's really cool how they set up this cross-faction interaction in this quest. I think it's a great incentive to PvP and to introduce people to the opposite faction. Remember, Ashenvale is one of the first zones where you actually have both Horde and Alliance. It is a contested zone. So to be able to interact with the opposite faction in this quest, I think is a really, really nice touch. Now this part of the quest is actually really non-intuitive. You actually have no idea how to retrieve the iron pommel. What you want to be doing is you want to be killing these rotting slimes, but they don't necessarily drop it directly. They actually drop every once in a while a rusty box, and inside that box an iron pommel could be there. So it's a little bit of RNG on top of RNG. You have to wait for the box to drop, and then after the box drops, you have to hope that the box contains the pommel. So it takes just a little bit longer for you to actually get the item. For me, I think it took me around 12 rotting slime kills, which I think is average for the most part. So here we are approaching the hidden shrine where we will assemble the rod together and magically infuse it so that it actually works. Now I really want to stop here for a second. As you all know, Vanilla WoW had a tremendous amount of secrets and unexplained things in the world. You would come across a camp with some corpses, but no quest would ever lead you there, or the quest would be incredibly optional and you wouldn't actually have to do it. This quest is a great example of small secrets in the world being uncovered. This hidden shrine, I remember 10, 11 years ago, whenever Vanilla was still out, I remember coming across this shrine and being like, what is this? What is this? Is it supposed to summon a boss? Is this part of a quest? I had no idea at the time. And if you guys ever used to play Pokemon back in the day, Gold and Silver version, you would know that there is a shrine in one of the forests in the early game that is actually used to summon a really rare Pokemon. I think it's called like Celebi or something like that. It's been so long. But this area really reminded me of that Pokemon hidden shrine. And because of that, it spawned like all of these different theories as to what this place actually was and what the purpose of it was, until eventually I did do the quest and I did get Dartol's Rod of Transformation, which, as you can see, turns you into this fabulous Furbolg. It's an absolutely stellar item, and it's a great way to complement this hidden location. It makes me want to uncover all of the secrets behind all of the hidden locations in WoW, because the prize, the reward for doing so, is really, really cool. I really like the Furbolg models, by the way. I think they look incredibly vicious, And I think it's a really nice item to have so early on in the game. I mean, look how fun this is, man. Just running around like a crazy bear. I'm not a druid. Do I look like a druid to you? And I think the running animation is really cool. I love the fact that the rod has only like a minute-long cooldown, so you can basically have it up at all times. And of course, as I said in the vanilla questing video, I really like the idea of organic optional quests that reward you with really cool non-combat items. I think it's always been a nice touch in World of Warcraft, and I think it's something that we should really appreciate because honestly, this is what makes your adventure unique every single time. You might not do this quest every single run. It sure as hell isn't a convenient quest. I mean, it took me like an hour and a half to finish this thing 10 levels higher than the actual requirement, but it is a quest with a really unique and cool reward, and I wish we had more optional style quests like this in the game with similar reward mechanics. Now, although we've assembled the rod, that isn't actually the primary objective of this quest. Remember, the whole purpose of the rod was to figure out how to thwart the Furbolg invasions at Astronar. However, for me personally, and I think for a lot of people that actually end up doing this quest, this is kind of where the story ends. The whole point of this quest is really to pick up the actual Rod of Transformation. It's not really to do it for the experience because of how long this quest actually takes. I will tell you, however, the last part of the quest requires you to infiltrate the Furbolg camp using your disguise and kill one of its leaders. I think his name is Raene Bloodbath. But for me, I've accomplished what I wanted to in this quest, getting this sweet, sweet item. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. And if you did, sub it up and stick around because we got more coming. If there's a quest you'd like me to highlight in the future, let me know in the comments section below and hopefully I'll get to it. And for more classic WoW content, news, and updates, you can follow me on my Twitter page linked in the description below. Have a wonderful day, fellas. And as always, tips out, baby.